All right, in this video we're going to be reviewing Boolean logic and logical operators. Okay, so what is Boolean logic? So Boolean, it means a lot of things, but basically, to sum it up in one sentence, it refers to a set of logical thoughts and operators used to create true and false statements. And so it can be a very complex set of rules, but in the end, what you're going to get from it is either true or false. And we'll talk about this more in a bit. Okay. So Boolean is important to all programming languages, and it's not just MATLAB. So it's all programming literally use Boolean. Okay, and its main use is to control some primary programming constructs like if statements or while loops. Okay, and so being able to understand how to read and manipulate Boolean statements is I would say, a pretty staple skill for any programming language. So you're not really going to be doing much programming without Boolean, and so it's really important to learn. Okay. Okay, so at its core, all Boolean statements can either be true or false. That's it, and so it can't have any other value. So there's no maybe. It's just true or false. Okay, and so whenever you see a Boolean statement or something that's a Boolean, you have to ask yourself, under which conditions will this statement be true, and under which conditions will this statement be false. And so I have a couple examples for you here. And so you have a statement, right? And so you say pineapple is a fruit. That's true, right? Pineapple is defined as a fruit, okay? But you have another statement, pineapple is a pizza topping. That's obviously false because it sucks as a pizza topping, okay? It's not a good one. And so that's kind of an example of how Boolean statements work, right? So there's statements, they can either be true or false, right? And so inside the computer, the computer is actually not storing the full word true and false. And so what it does is it takes a shortcut. And so to represent a false value, the computer uses a 0. And to represent a true value, the computer uses a 1. Technically, any other non-zero value counts as true, but most times it's either 0 or 1. And I want you to remember that for the rest of this video, okay? And what you'll see sometimes too is that MATLAB has a special data type called a logical that's used for Boolean statements, and that's mostly just so that they can restrict it to either 0 or 1. Okay, and in reality, is to kind of save some memory in the computer as well. Right? And oftentimes, the most common way to use Boolean statements in MATLAB is to compare values between two different numbers. Okay, and so we have several different options here. Okay, and so we have the double equal operator, and so that double equal, what that does is that it checks if two numbers are equal. Right? And so some statements that you can plug into MATLAB is that you can check and see if 6 is equal 3 plus 3, right? And so that's obviously true. But then you can have another statement that says 6 equal 3 minus 3, which is false, right? And so in addition to equals to, we have greater than or less than, and they have the same kind of meaning as you probably understand from before, okay? And so here are some examples of greater thans or less thans that can be either true or false. We can also have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to as well. Okay, and so basically how you understand these comparison operators, they work exactly the same in MATLAB, and they're used to kind of create these Boolean statements. Okay. All right, so let's talk about operators that we can actually put on the Boolean itself, right? And so all the previous equals greater than, I would consider those as creating the Boolean statements. But once the Boolean is created, you can add some additional stuff to modify their value or combine them into one. Okay, and so the first one that we'll talk about is the not operator, which is tilde. Okay, and so what the tilde does is that it reverses the Boolean value. And so if it was originally true, it makes it false. And if it was originally false, it makes it true. Okay, so it just kind of flips it to its other side. Right? And so some examples here, we can have pineapple is not a fruit. That's obviously a false statement. But if you have the next statement, pineapple is not a pizza topping, I don't think there's anything more true in the world, right? And so that's obviously true. Right? And so traditionally in MATLAB, if you're going to use the not operator, you put the tilde at the beginning of the Boolean statement. Okay, and so here's some examples here. And so we have one statement up there that says 6 is less than 3 plus 3. And so that is false, right? So 6 is equal to 3 plus 3, so the less than operator will return false. But if we put the tilde in front, and so inside these parentheses here we have 6 and less than 3 plus 3, that's false. But if we add the tilde here, then that's what makes it equal to true. Okay, and so if you need to reverse a Boolean statement, or if you see this tilde here, just know that it just reverses the value. Right? Next, we'll talk about the OR operator. And so OR is one of two ways that you can combine Boolean statements into one. Okay, because a lot of times you want to check kind of more than one thing at once. And then when you do combine these, that entire thing will be considered one single Boolean statement, and that entire thing will either be true or false, right? And so the way the OR works is that it'll return true if any of the individual Boolean statements returns true. Okay. So as an example here, we have our pineapple example, right? So pineapple is not a fruit, or pineapple is a fruit, which is true, but pineapple is obviously not a pizza topping. And so if we combine them together into one statement, we say that pineapple is either a fruit or a pizza topping, that's true, right? Because this first part of the statement is true. Even though the second part of the statement is blatantly false, it doesn't matter because the first part of the statement is true. And so the OR says that if either one of these are true, then return true. Okay? And so the only way an OR statement can return false if all the individual Boolean statements return false. Okay? And you can actually combine more than one as well. And so you can add as many ORs as you want, right? And so here are some examples. And so we have here 6 is less than 3 plus 3, so this first part is false. But this next part is 6 is greater than 1 plus 1, which is 2. And since we have this OR operator here, it's going to return true. Okay. Next, we have this one right here. And so we have 3 statements here, right? So you can combine more than 2. And in this case, we only have one part that's true here, which is the first one, which is 6 is less than 8. All the other ones are false. And so this whole statement returns true. And so it's only if all 3 statements here are false does it return false. Okay, so we have 6 greater than 7, false, 6 greater than 8, false, 6 greater than 9, false, and so this whole thing returns false. Okay, so let's talk about the AND operator next. So the AND operator is the other way that you can combine Boolean statements, and it kind of has the opposite effect. And so AND will only return true if all of the individual Boolean statements return true. Okay, if just one of them are false, then the AND will also return false. Okay, and so here we have an obviously true statement. Here we have a blatantly false statement, right? Pineapple is not a pizza topping. And so if we combine them together with an and say that pineapple is a fruit and a pizza topping, this is false because the second part of the statement is just egregiously false. Okay. Okay, so let's see some examples of this in MATLAB. Okay, and so we have that 6 is less than 3 plus 4, and 6 is less than 3 times 4. Okay, so both of these are true, and so that returns true. Okay. Next, we have this one here, and so even though we have 2 statements here that are true, we have one that is false, and so this whole thing is going to return false. Okay. And here we have one more example with the triple. So all 3 of these return true, and so this is going to return true as well. Okay. Finally, let's go over a couple niche situations. And so MATLAB has these special keywords called any or all that can be used to check if all the entries in a vector or any of the entries in a vector satisfy a Boolean relationship. Okay, and so this is useful if you have a large vector of values and you want to check every single one, but it's really kind of annoying to pull them out. Okay, and so here's some examples. And so let's say we have a vector. Here we have a vector of 5 different values, and so we can check and see if any of the values are greater than 19. Here we have one value that's greater than 19, which is 20, and so that's going to return true. Okay. Next, we can check to see if all the values in this vector are greater than 19, and that's false because there's only one entry here that's greater than 19. Okay. And then finally, just one more example, just because I could fit it, and so we can say, are any of the entries in this vector greater than 20? And that's false because all of these are less than or equal to 20, and so that is equal to false as well. Okay. So understanding Boolean logic is, I think this is the part of programming that really starts to intimidate people, but just treat them just as regular sentences. Literally read them out loud, and if they're going to be true, then they're true. If they're false, then they're false. Okay. And so Boolean is not as bad as you think it is. Just think of it as either just true or false.